All right, we've done buy low, done sell high. Sometimes those players are pretty obvious. You can tell when the struggling star is due to bounce back, you buy low. And when somebody just comes out of absolutely nowhere and is hot for a couple of weeks, sure, go ahead and sell high. But today, I'm going to tackle 7 of the toughest players that honestly could go either way the rest of the season. And I'm going to tell you, buy or sell. And let's tackle the very toughest one head on right out of the gate. It's going to be rookie phenom, I think it's fair to say now, Jacob Mizorowski, because after 3 starts, his latest of which he outdueled Paul Skeens. I mean, there probably could not possibly be more hype. And of course, a lot of people are saying, is this the next Paul Skeens, this year's version? Now, if you watch Fantasy Endgame, especially this season, you know what I'm going to say here. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. It's too early to anoint a guy as the rookie of the year already, right? And next ace, all that. He looks the part. He's got the talent, all of that. I agree. If I have Jacob Mizorowski, I absolutely want to hold him and see exactly what is going to happen the rest of the year. But at the same time, you can tell me if you don't get somebody who wants him batter and is going to give you a good offer, maybe a stud hitter, maybe a package of players, you're not willing to entertain that? Keep in mind, this is a young pitcher who throws not 100, but like 102 miles per hour, has had some injuries in the past, and so you eliminate that risk. You also got to wonder, is he really going to keep this up? So over those 3 starts, let's just look over this real quick. 1.13 ERA, and that's because you give up 2 runs, ironically, to the Twins of all teams. I don't know how that happened, but 0 runs in his other 2 starts. Granted, it's not been exactly a murderer's row, his schedule. I mean, he had the Twins, he had the Cardinals, he had the Pirates. So to some extent, you got to wonder, when they come around and face the Cubs, maybe he faces the Dodgers, one of those teams, what's going to happen? But on the other hand, I mean, just look, what this guy can do, no matter who he faces, is punch batters out at a high rate. That's not going to change. 5 strikeouts his very first start, 6 the next, and then 8. It just keeps going up. And the biggest concern I had was, were the walks going to be part of it too, right? Was he just going to be all over the place? And no, in fact, we've seen, encouragingly enough, the exact same trend. He's getting better. He had 4 walks his very first time out, but only 1 and then 2 in his next 2 starts. If there's a concern with Mizorowski other than the potential or injury, which obviously every pitcher has, it's going to be the innings limits or restrictions if he has any. So what he's done is gone 5 innings, 6 innings, and 5 innings. 86 is his high in terms of pitches thrown. I don't know that he'll ever get to 100 this season. Now, he doesn't have to actually do that. If he's been that efficient with his pitches, he's not walking batters, maybe he can get through 6 frames, maybe even a 7th without even getting close to 90 pitches. But that said, this is just the norm these days, right? How many starting pitchers, veteran or rookie, are really going deep into games anymore? So I'm just going to push that concern aside and just say, all told, if you have Jacob Mizorowski, I'm not going to say you can't sell high because, of course, if somebody's willing to give you a haul, I'm going to basically say you can sell anybody high. Basically, anybody except Cal Raleigh, of course. That said, if you've got Miz, I think you just hold here, or if you don't, it's okay to buy. This is a time to buy into a potential future ace, present ace. And you know what? Those are in such short demand these days. You just be glad that you have him. We just lost among all these pitchers, besides the ones we've already seen out since the preseason, early this season. Talking about the Garrett Coles and guys like that. We just lost Chris Sale, Cole Reagan still on the IL, Kodai Senga, Michael King. I could go on. It's just so hard to get a pitcher like Mizorowski. Yes, I'm buying into it. Now, he will probably have a bad start one of these days, especially when he does face a tougher lineup. But man, the strikeouts is going to offset it. Got a good chance to get you a win being in Milwaukee. So I'm going to say he is a buy. All right, now let's shift gears to hitters. And we're going to hear a lot about Jarren Duran in the coming weeks. I've already gotten questions about him. Maybe going to be on the trade block. I mean, if they can trade Rafael Devers for whatever they got for him, surely they can trade Duran too. Now, whether it happens, we still have a few weeks to figure out. But regardless of whether he's in Boston or somewhere else, I think it's fair to ask, are we holding him? Because so far he's been a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, the batting average last 2 years flirting with 300 and now down in the 250s, 254 as of right now. And well, sure, the speed is still there, and I think he's on pace to pretty much match last year's stolen base totals. But the power has evaporated. Only 5 home runs so far this year after reaching 21 last season. And again, that 254 average, definitely not cutting for you. I mean, now you're looking at the fact that he's basically almost becoming a one-trick pony, just helping you with steals. And, this year across the league, steals are up again. So that isn't even as helpful as it would have been. So can he bounce back in all of those categories? Let's look individually, talk about batting average. Well, you know what? Actually, this shouldn't be too surprising because, well, his expected batting average is 257, so he's basically getting what he deserves. But look at the last 2 seasons, even though his actual average was much higher, like I said, 295, 285, his expected batting average was 268, 271. So he was a bit of an overachiever. Now, speedy runners, guys who can leg out infield hits and, make the most of their speed tend to do that. They'll outperform their expected stats. But it seems like he's not doing that this year. So I do think the batting average will go up. And obviously, if he gets a little bit better quality of contact, it will go up anyways, along with his XBA. I just don't know if he'll necessarily reach the high 280s or 290s. So I expect some improvement, but not a dramatic improvement. Now, what about the power? Well, here's the thing. Really interesting because he should have more than 5 home runs, even though he hasn't really deserved more yet. Look at last year's total. This might be the outlier. Of those 21 homers he had last year, 17 were what StatCast considers doubters. Doubter meaning that it would not have gone out in 2/3 of Major League ballparks. If you look at last year's total out of all the guys who had these doubters, look at the list. If you check out the guys who are in the very top, now of course you're going to get some of the most prolific home run hitters just because they had so many, but look at the guys who had the most doubters that aren't those prolific sluggers. You got guys like Gleyber Torres and Mike Yastrzemski. Yaz, who isn't even fantasy relevant anymore, and Gleyber Torres, who is barely someone that you would want to start, and definitely not for the power. So what am I saying here? I don't expect the homers to come back. And you know what? Even if Duran does get shipped somewhere else, maybe it's a hitter-friendly park. Look, he's not going to Cincinnati or to Coors Field, all right? And he's been rumored to go to places like San Diego. Yeah, that's not better for power. I don't see the home runs getting back to last year's total. So we'll get to double digits, but maybe just barely. So with all that said, as far as Jarren Duran right here, right now, I'm actually going to buy. And I'll tell you why. Because first of all, he has been disappointing, right? There's no two ways about it. Now that we're at this point in the season, the batting average, the power. So you can buy low on him. And even if moving somewhere else, again, this is totally hypothetical, I'm not convinced he will get traded. I just think it's possible. It may not help his power numbers, but I do think it will help his run and RBI totals because, again, just look at the state of the Red Sox offense these days. Again, no offense personally, but when you have Rob Refsnyder leading off, and then you have a slew of rookies, and you have all these, role players who are just becoming everyday players. Honestly, it's kind of a mess here. I think a change of scenery might help kickstart Durant, especially in the batting average department and the counting stats overall. So I don't expect 20 home runs, but I expect the rest of it to improve slightly. And I do think that you can buy for a good price right now in fantasy. All right, here's a little bit of an easier one. Now, if you do read Fantasy Pros, you might already know my take on this. Article that came out the other day talking about buys and sells. Marcell Ozuna was one that I singled out. He is somebody who obviously has been struggling lately, so you figure this could go either way. There is obviously a buy low window on him because, yeah, the average for the season is down to 247, but just in June, hitting 176, just 2 homers this past month. And the Braves, as we move towards the second half of the season, are looking more and more like they're going to be sellers at the deadline. Now, I'm not going to speculate as to whether Ozuna is going to be part of that. Doesn't matter here. It's what do you do with Ozuna right here, right now? The other thing we've known for weeks now, is that he's playing through a hip tear, which cannot be comfortable, cannot be good. It's going to have to catch up to him at some point, and maybe it already has hence the lower batting average. Didn't seem like it was bothering him at first, but clearly something's not right here. So while there's no guarantee he hits the IL, and sure, maybe he does just fight through it and still give you some, production in terms of the power numbers and all that, it just sell. I think it's time to move on here. You're mitigating the risk that something does go wrong injury wise, which is very strong possibility, but also just he's not himself. The strikeouts are piling up, right? The batting average. This team, despite all the talent they have at offense, aren't really looking much better than last year, even with Ronald Acuna back. He's looking great. But the rest of this bunch, Austin Riley's struggling, Ozzy Albies hasn't quite turned it around completely, etc., etc. I think I'm ready to be done with Ozuna. Another team that has been a disappointment compared to last season. You already know the Baltimore Orioles looking like it's not happening for them this year. So where does that leave their star player, Gunnar Henderson? I mean, Henderson was a consensus first round pick in fantasy, and he's definitely left you wanting for more this year. Hitting a respectable 271, but 8 homers, 9 steals. The RBI run numbers are good, but not great. All told, it's fine, but we don't want fine with our first round pick. We want dominant, we want superstar. And now, to some extent, we can excuse this the fact that he got off to a slow start, remember, was on the IL very beginning of the season with an intercostal strain, and you got to think that affected him, especially early on. And we saw him struggle through it. Seemed to get better, but now we've just kind of plateaued. Now, in just the month of June, the batting average has been pretty good, getting to 316. So, on the one hand, that's encouraging, but just 1 homer to go with it. Is that a trade off that we really want? There's got to be more to come here. He's got to get better. The expected stats say that he should be doing better, but also, look, he's hitting the ball hard. His hard hit rate and his average exit velocity are both 90 percentile. It's the launch angle, right? The launch angle sweet spot, he's in the 8th percentile. So this is one of those things that easy for me to say, right? And maybe harder for him to do is just tweak that launch angle, right? Just lift the ball a little bit more, hitting the sweet spot, and all of a sudden they'll start leaving the yard. Like, we know he can do this, and he should be far removed from the injury enough that it's really not affecting him. He's hitting the ball, again, for average. It seems like it could all fall in place. It doesn't mean it will, right? There are no guarantees here, but I'm wondering if this is one of those players that maybe the All-Star break will do him good. So all told, this is still a young star player who could unlock things in the second half, maybe less pressure, if anything, if the Orioles are out of it. But I'm not giving up on Gunnar Henderson, and I really think if you can buy low, I would still do it. And nobody came into the season calling the Athletics an exciting young team. Young for sure, we knew that, but well, you know what? Their record is almost the same as the Orioles. So here we go. Let's talk about some A's players. Now, I've also got a lot of questions about Tyler Soderstrom. People are wondering what happened because, hey, remember the first month of the season, he was right up there with the league leaders in terms of power. Season long, the numbers, they look decent, right? 14 homers, 45 RBIs, but 9 of those homers came over the first month of action, only 2 in June. And both of those actually came on the same day. That was back on June 5th. So now we're talking about a 3-week power drought. And meanwhile, Nick Kurtz there is not only stealing the headlines, but, he stole the first base job. He's got it. He's going to keep that job probably for a decade plus. Let's be real. He's not going to be in Oakland/Vegas very long. But anyways, so Soderstrom has actually moved back to the outfield. He's manning left field these days. He can DH and play first base on occasion as well. Is that something that maybe has affected him because, mentally being in a different part of the field, just getting adjusted? I don't think so. I'm not even going to address that. Let's look at some actual data here. So as far as his rolling expected slugging percentage, let's cut it off there. Let's forget that first early bit of the season. Since that 100 plate appearance threshold, it's gone down. This might be what you call a red flag. But then I look at the fact that his strikeout percentage has also gone down. And so this is a player who maybe just isn't selling out for power quite as much. Now, it's not like he's all of a sudden hitting 300, right? His batting average has actually kind of just settled in here around the 250s. That's probably what he is, right? 250s, 260s type of hitter. So we need that power back. Is it going to come back? I think it will because all the other peripherals look pretty good, look promising. And just because he was so hot early in the season, it's tempting to look at what he's done and say, oh, he's turned into a bum all of a sudden. He hasn't been that bad. He's going through it right now, right? Middle of summer, when a lot of the other bats are heating up, his hasn't. But look, he still plays in a very favorable situation, especially that ballpark. And I do think we're going to see better numbers second half. So, look, if someone's willing to give him up on the cheap, I'll buy. All right, back to pitching. Some of you may have a decision to make now that Nathan Eovaldi is coming off the injured list. Now, that decision certainly doesn't involve dropping Eovaldi because he has been one of the best starting pitchers in fantasy this year. 1.56 ERA. The strikeout numbers are solid. I mean, he's having his best season over a pretty long career. So you're wondering what's the question here? Well, the question is, now that Eovaldi is back, maybe you're good at pitching. Do you sell high on him and maybe consider the fact that he has overachieved? Because I'm about to tell you exactly how much he's overachieved. Got an expected ERA of 3.41, which, doing some quick dirty math, that's a little bit more than double his actual ERA. Ex-WOBA, which is still one of my favorite go-to stats as far as actual performance. Hate to say it, but as far as all pitchers who have gotten at least 100 balls in play, he is the biggest overachiever by 76 points. Yep, regression, it's going to come. Now, injury was always a factor here, not just because he pitches in the major leagues, but because Eovaldi has a history of getting injured. So you can think, well, maybe he's got that out of the way, out of his system now. But of course, we could see more to come. Maybe that triceps injury actually starts to bother him as he gets back to it. So there's that risk, obviously, as well, plus the regression. You see where this is heading. I do think you sell high if you've got Eovaldi back now and you got him. And some people might be tempted to buy into him, think, oh, I'm going to try to sneak an ace into my squad and I can buy low. I wouldn't do it. And then finally, I've got to talk about Sandy, don't I? So Sandy Alcantara has all of a sudden, ditched that old body that he had from the first couple of months of the season. And he's slipped back into the old Sandy suit, the guy that was the Cy Young winner from a couple years ago. Yes, different guy, like night and day. In the month of June, in those 4 starts he's had so far, a 2.74 ERA and an even 1 whip with a 19-5 strikeout to walk rate. It's really staggering when you consider that still his season-long numbers are that bad. A 6.69 ERA, 1.46 whip, even after those 4 starts. That's how awful he was to start the year. So clearly you should have bought into picking him up off the waiver wire after he was dropped. It's too late for that for most of you. But what do you do now? Is this a time where you think, hey, I got him, I'm going to flip him, get out while the getting is good? Or on the other side, if someone's willing to do that, maybe should this be a time though you can buy low for the rest of the season? I've been saying throughout the whole early portion of the season, this is a second half play, right? Innings restrictions, maybe not his, true form early on, and then we're going to see him in a different uniform, of course, maybe be lights out in the second half. It looks like that's what's going to happen. And the question really only at this point is, which uniform will he be wearing? So now we got rumors of not just the Dodgers, but the Cubs and the Giants, all teams that are contending and need an ace, and they might be flipping one of their top prospects for Sandy Alcantara. And all 3 of those are great situations for him, not just to actually maybe win games even when he's pitching well, but again, they're not going to get this guy to go out there and give them 5 innings and turn over the bullpen. They want him to do what he's been doing recently and do it for 6, maybe even 7 innings. If Sandy Alcantara is in any way, shape, or form out there and available to buy low, I'm going to do it now. And if you happen to be the GM of the Dodgers, Cubs, or Giants watching this, please go ahead and give us either, let's say, Bryce Eldridge, Owen Cassie, Zahir Hope, any of those guys for Sandy Alcantara, we'll take it. All right, that was buy or sell. If you like that, I want to check out the panic video for this week to know what exactly to do with some of those players who are really struggling.